Welcome back to the Nerdrotic Podcast. My name is Gary Buechler. I am live in San Francisco, California. I come to you from nerdrotic.com, and I am with my co-host, Jon Reed, who is in NoCal as well. What's up, John?
Hey, how's it going? It's late, but it's great. I love it.
It is late. It's way past my bedtime, but, they drop American Gods on Starz, Amazon at 9 o'clock Pacific time. We decided to do it tonight. It actually works out better with all your traveling. So welcome, everyone. And first off, I just want to say thank you for all the views, all the comments. You guys are awesome. And we have some winner announcements at the end of this episode. But let's get right into it, John. Great episode, I thought. What did you think?
Yeah, happy Father's Day.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, it was a great episode. This is what I've wanted the whole show to be, and they've given us glimpses of this all the way along, and the last few episodes have just been like spectacular, right? Like they did the big what was it, a Murder of Gods or whatever in the third to last episode, and then they did this really beautiful like one-off with Laura and Mad Sweeney last week, and then we just get this like epic precursor to what next season is going to be. And I loved the stuff with the Billquist, which I haven't liked so far this season. I came into full focus in this episode, and the clash between the old gods and the new gods is like solidified in such a beautiful way. Like so I there's not a lot to criticize in this episode. I think it was a really, really great finale. I was smiling for pretty much the last 3/4 of this episode, which just had me like on the edge of my seat. What about you? Did you like it?
I loved it. I wasn't sure where it was going at first, but that ending rallied so well. I have a couple of nitpicks that we'll get into later, but not many. And I really loved the Coming to America Billquist because it did, because that was one of the things that I was like, what is her point in all this? And sometimes you, as a viewer, you just got to wait and be patient. It's like a kid sitting next to you. What's going to happen, Dad? What's going to happen? That's what I was being. And I needed to be patient. And it was really well done. It was basically American Gods Argo. She escapes Iran right before the Shah takes over. That's why when they're in that disco, for one, they showed like
it was like Billquist's Dazzler.
Billquist's Dazzler, and they showed Tehran, and I'm like, what the hell, Tehran? It didn't click.
Is that
until later? Yeah, I was like, what the hell? Oh, it's Tehran, the city.
That awesome club next to Area 51.
Yeah, exactly. Or Studio 54 or Area 51, whatever. I mean, yeah, that'd be.
I've got aliens on the brain.
For one, the beginning where it shows the orgy and everybody turns into ooze and goes up her vag. I mean, it was like, and then when Mr. Nancy's telling the story, he says what I said earlier in the season. Well, there's worse ways to go, and there's worse ways to go, really. But we find out kind of where she's at. So she has, she escapes Iran. And she evolves, and she is with the new gods right now. But it just looks tenuous at best. By the way,
well, so she's like you said before the podcast, she's a wild card, and she's an old god who has had a favor done to her by a new god. Technology boy threw her a bone when she was down and out, and not literally though. And so Technology Boy, brought her into the fold, but he's not a master at like interpersonal relationships.
No.
So if you're looking for like a handler, he's not the most ideal handler for like a double agent. And she is a double agent. She's heading to Wisconsin, as we see at the end of the episode. So, you're right. It's a tenuous thing, but I think that we have to look at her as like a spy for the new gods, like as on face value right now. If it just seems like that's the dynamic that they've put in place as of right now. I also wanted to say about Billquist that this episode makes me feel even like I dislike the previous Billquist segments even more now. Like I thought that they were there for shock value in the first place, and in the first 2 episodes, it was just like, okay, they did it, and then they did this crazy thing again. But this scene explained her essence so much more clearly and effectively and interestingly that, like, if you hadn't even been introduced to her until maybe the scene where she's like checking out her bikini um, in the behind the glass, like maybe that's the first we should have seen of her, and just gotten like that maybe once before, and then had this coming to America story. Like I don't understand it quite, but that said, the way that they did it tonight was like perfect. Like I loved it. Wasn't too over the top, but it was still crazy and interesting. Uh, and and I also want to say that I love the dynamic between Orlando Jones as Mr. Nancy and Wednesday. Their dynamic makes me like both of those characters like way more. I wish that like they were like a buddy, like we're like a duo or a trio with Shadow going forward, but they kind of left Nancy behind to go to see Easter. So I guess he'll meet up with him.
Yeah, I wish we could have gotten more Mr. Nancy, and we will, because he's so great in the book.
Yeah,
And I gotta be, especially at this point, I gotta be very careful because sometimes I spoilers will fly out of my mouth from the book, so I will try very hard not to do that. And it's hard because I know how the book ends, and those of you who have read it out there know how it ends. So it.
Oh, yeah.
Go on.
I want to jump in on this really quickly. If Gary, I may act. So I've read the book. The only spoiler I remembered was who Mr. Wednesday was. Like that's all I remember as like a secret of the book. So if I say a spoiler at any point, it's not a real spoiler because I have no memory of this book. I have way more memory of Anansi Boys, but like I have zero memory of what happens in this book other than the fact that it was a road trip and I liked it. Right. So for me, if I say something, I'm just extrapolating from the show. I may accidentally lead Gary into revealing some things with questions that I pose to him, and I'll let you take it from there. Yeah. But for me, I'm not spoiling anything because I actually don't remember anything.
Well, and sometimes I just get excited about stuff and I just start talking. And when I had the comic store, man, I dropped some huge ones. You know, the first couple of years I owned it. It took me a while to kind of hone the building up a story without ruining it for a customer. So I will try to continue that here. But knowing how this ends, I'm excited because I think they're going to change it. That's because they've changed so much anyway, and for the better. And like I've said, previous podcasts, this is, American Gods is a great outline. And we are at this point, we're not even maybe a third away, maybe a quarter away through the book in some instances.
Yeah,
we're
they've
farther.
gone off the timeline a little bit, but
yeah,
we've probably had about a quarter of the story told at this point.
Yeah. And I don't know if they're either, there's another part they skipped that I think they might save for later. So I won't bring it up. And the ending was definitely new, which we will get to. With the Billquist, I love when that technical boy mentioned when she was like coming on to him a little bit. He's like, yeah, I don't want to end up in the vagina nebula.
Yeah, the vagina nebula.
Damn. Oh man. And I know he's supposed to be a different fashion every time, but is it a fashion to have like the stuff over your, what was going on with his teeth?
Like the grill?
Yeah. Oh, is that what that was? It looked like
so.
like a flavored mouthpiece or something like that. And
with the James Brown look.
Yeah. I was like, wow, I haven't seen that look before. That's interesting.
I'm probably old too. Like it's probably
Yeah.
some other look that I don't know, but it's like reminiscent of James Brown.
Yeah, right.
Like some other pop star out there who are R&B stars, like funk star. So yeah, I don't know. Some of the choices they had on his look were interesting. I still though, you said it, and I love it that he's like vaping some crazy like techno juice at all times. It's just so great. I love it.
Well, yeah, in the book they describe it like every time he vapes, or he's smoking something, because it's not a vape in the in the book, but there's always the smell of burning wires and stuff. So that's kind of what I imagine what it smells like. But when God, the scene where she's on the street and she's got, the bad skin. Like that's the first time I actually really, I felt for Billquist. That's when I started connecting with her. I thought that was really well done.
So there was a scene that I didn't understand in that montage that maybe you can explain to me. So she goes into there's a patient in a hospital who has HIV, and she goes in to see them. Who was that woman in the
That
hospital?
woman was from the club in
Oh, so it
Tehran.
was the girl from Tehran.
Yeah, and what I imagined was she was following her to America.
Gotcha.
Um, and it was like what real quick, they showed her in ancient times, and then they showed her adapting as the disco queen,
Yeah, in the
literally,
70s in
in the
Iran.
70s and 70s Tehran, and then she's escaping, and they used kind of a voiceover with Mr. Nancy telling the story of how basically and the whole theme of this episode is the matriarchy. Okay, that's what it is. It's like when women were in charge, it was a little more peaceful, and when men came along, they brought their weapons and their war, and they didn't
I
have
like the
time.
levels that they played that on. Like, I
Yeah,
love that they're talking about the queen, and it's this like powerful woman, but it's also like the chessboard. Like they were finding like the new gods needed their queen, and the old gods needed their. Like I like that it's this tactical discussion as well as this like sociological discussion. I kind of like how the episode played with those things. I usually find Fuller to be a little bit pretentious, but he's done a really good job in this series since in my opinion about halfway of taking these themes that he likes to do, these like social warrior, social justice warrior issue themes, and weaving it into the themes that Neil Gaiman was playing with, and also into like a tactical story, right? And I like that he's been doing that very effectively in the last, but whatever 6 episodes, however many episodes it's been since the one we bitched about, or at least I did.
yeah.
So yeah, I like he's found a deft hand with some of these things, and I'm appreciating it.
No, I think it's really, it's not heavy-handed. I am no PC person or SJW, but I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
I also have to correct myself. I said that it was the Ayatollah of who took over, and the Shah was expelled in Iran. So please excuse me. Yeah. So he told that story behind that the Iranian Revolution, and I thought that was really well done and interesting.
So in this story, her downfall kind of comes when she's in LA looking at ISIS desecrating her temple. In the books, do you remember what it is that is there like did they update that from something to ISIS desecrating her temple, or did they just add that to update it into modern times?
They added that to update it to modern times, and that's honestly, that's the one that breaks my heart the most. I'm really into that stuff, as you know, and the Mesopotamian temples being destroyed. God, some of the wall where you see like the kings with the big beards. That's where the Anunnaki stuff comes from Zechariah Sitchin. That's old Mesopotamia, that just ancient stuff. I mean, our first civilization, and they're just blowing it up. It's so fucking frustrating to watch. And it was, and seeing it happen to her and weaving that in another way of great storytelling, and then with the voiceover, Mr. Nancy. Yeah, I love that whole sequence. And also back to the girlfriend, the girl she was following to America. I think that was a way to kind of weave, the 80s into this, like she was in the 70s, and now this is her in the 80s, with AIDS. And that was a kind of a quick way of telling, having the passage of time. We see her in the 70s, see her in the 80s, and now she's, just homeless. And that's when Technical Boy, offers her the deal, and of course she's going to take it. And she's the goddess of Tinder, or whatever app that is now.
I just love that the line was worship is a volume business. Whoever has the most followers like wins the game, or whatever. I love that
was
sentiment,
great.
and so yeah, he basically hooked her up with there's this overarching story where the new gods offered some of the old gods the mechanism to stay relevant in some way by changing in some way. We see that with Easter. They allude to Saint Nick, Saint Nicholas, who becomes Santa Claus, and
Yeah.
get this idea that like
Santa Claus sold out, man.
yeah, like all these
Fuck.
sold out. And I like that. I love that idea of like the new gods who are coming up pulled some of the old gods with them and changed them in some fundamental way. And like we see in this episode, Easter kind of rebels against that at the end to rejoin the old gods, the forgotten gods. So, I like that. We see that in Billquist, and then we see that in Easter later on. This idea that technical boy is handing her a mechanism to stay relevant, and she just needs to grab onto it to survive.
Yeah, this show rides so many. I mean, it's controversial on every level, but not. I don't know. I don't see it as heavy-handed. There are some who do out there, and that's fine. But just the lines they just walk down this just a straight line sometimes, especially with the Jesus stuff. I love at the interview afterwards. I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself, but I want to talk about this real quick. We have all these. It's called "Come to Jesus," the name of the episode, and it just reminded his Brian Fuller's interview at the end of the show. He's all, well, I feel like we dealt with Jesus Christ with a lot of respect. He's literally the nicest guy in our series. And then they cut to the scene where Wednesday's explaining to Easter how Jesus kind of stole her day, and he's like, I really feel bad about this. I was like, so, but it's so funny because I thought they handled it well, but I'd be curious to see like how a hardcore Christian would see that. Although Christian Chenoweth, I guess they mentioned that she is one.
Yeah.
So the irony of casting her in it, I guess she didn't have a problem with it. I didn't have a problem with it because I don't believe in that stuff. But I don't know. I thought it was pretty well done. But I wanted to point out that we saw a Mexican Jesus, which goes to, I was kind of wondering if in that Coming to America with Mexican Jesus, if he was actually sacrificing, his both sides of that to get power. And I think we got confirmation of that he did sacrifice the people crossing the river, and that's what that light was in his heart.
Well, so the Jesus thing also confuses me a little bit because, first of all, is Jesus an old God or a new God? Because he's relatively new, and there are probably versions of Jesus that are of like American creation, like ideas of Jesus, of vision. The whole idea is that there's all these Jesuses, right? That everyone has their own version of who Jesus is that they pray to. So it spawned all of these Jesuses, and so there's some that are newer versions. If people today have a very different idea of who Jesus is than even 15, 20 years ago, right? So I'm confused as to like who who is Jesus? Is he a new God that has come about over time? Like, or is there some that are old gods and some like, are they going to be fighting on both sides of this war? Like,
yeah, what is a new God? Well, I think all the American gods are new gods. I think Jesus is an old God. They did mention that, he did rise from the dead, that it wasn't Easter, and he just kind of co-opted her day.
Right, but that's when she made the transition to becoming brokering her deal with the new gods, was to merge these two things into one. So if his resurrection, which created him as like that, cemented him as a god, was the moment in which she made her bargain with the new gods, essentially, to be.
That's interesting,
right?
yeah.
Wouldn't that make Jesus the new God?
I would. Well, yeah. Be interesting.
Sorry,
this is good. I think some of them are old and some of them are new. I think like the American one would be new-ish. I would call it new-ish, because Mr. World, we don't know exactly what he is.
Yeah,
in the show, and we have Media and Technical Boy, which are like 50 to 70 years old. And there's things they can play with Media, which I'll get into in a second. But I would American Jesus technically new because he's an American God. I think he's an
Right.
American God. But there might be another version of Jesus. Like there might be a main version. That'd be interesting if they brought that in. Yeah, it's because some gods are older than others. I mean, the tree,
Right.
the god of the tree, Mr. Wood, is probably the first or one of the first. And they showed Nanu Nini was one of the older ones who was just the skull of a mastodon.
Yep.
And you know, and then we had the flaming eyed buffalo or bison or whatever you know, make a quick appearance.
That's the other thing I wanted to. So, on that same note, kind of transitioning away from the Jesus as a new or old God thing, we learn, I think, this episode that Mad Sweeney is not a god, and I thought that that was really interesting, right? Like this whole time he had a Coming to America story that was like a whole episode, and I've always thought of him as one of the old gods, and he admits to Laura in this episode that he's not a god like the other gods that they're playing
No,
with.
he's like a mythical creature.
Yeah,
So he was a king at one point. He was a king of the leprechauns or a
right.
king at some point, and then he ran from a fight. Was he? They made offerings to him like a god.
Right.
Maybe it's something
That's
like
a
he.
revelation, right? Like we didn't know that Mad Sweeney was not a god, like officially until tonight, right? Or were we supposed to not think he was a god?
You know, I wasn't entirely sure. I was thinking he. I believe that he was a god and he's not anymore. And I will equate that to when they talked about Mr. Wood, when he was the god of the trees and then he adapted. And Wednesday said he became something else. So, and then Vulcan talked about that when he sold out. When he was talking about the guns, he's all not exactly a god, but godlike. And I think they become lesser gods, maybe demigods, or you know, they do, you know, their human form can die,
right? So
you know,
basically, like I guess the gods are those that have never had a human form, and everything else is something else, which is interesting. I just never thought of that distinction, and I guess we just didn't know the origin. Like we knew he was a king. We knew Mad Sweeney was a king, but we don't know if like he was a man, or if he was a god that became a king, so it's one of those things that I think was interesting about this episode. It seemed new to me, like when they went through that conversation, I was like, that's a big reveal, like done in a very subtle way. Anyway,
yeah, I don't know if I ever saw him as a god. I mean, I just saw, as more mythical creature, but I could be wrong. Correct me, commenters, if you know. I'm sure Wikipedia's got an answer. And
the other crazy thing about a lot of this series is a lot of it seems like wishful thinking on Neil Gaiman or Brian Fuller's part, right? Like this whole monologue about how the world is atheist now. As an atheist, I could, only wish that were, like I feel like that's an atheist kind of projecting out there because, when you poll Americans right now, 10% admit to being atheists. They think it's probably closer to 20%, but that's still a vast minority of the population, even amongst younger people. And so this idea that like we've, as a culture have gotten rid of our worship of gods and moved on to worship of technology and media, and that these things have so much power and control, I think is not exactly true of what society is. So it's a weird reflection that I think that they're working with in this story. And it's not it's neither a good nor a bad thing. It's just something that I thought about when I heard that monologue from Wednesday.
Well, do you think that's either Neil Gaiman or Brian Fuller, just that's a character talking, or do you think they're actually projecting through the character?
I think they're projecting through the character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, the way I see it is like, to be an atheist, I mean, you straight up, I mean, I don't believe in anything. Now, I think people are more agnostic.
Right.
Where, I think there might be something out there, but is it the, white dude with the big beard or the mother goddess or anything? In this country, it depends on where you are in this country. I mean, if you go back where some of my relatives live, there's a lot of Christianity. There's a lot of religion left. And
in
I
the
think it's
Middle
just,
East, there's a lot of religion left. In all of Europe, there's a lot of religion yet left. In the East,
there's less in
religion
Europe.
everywhere.
In parts of Europe, there's less of it than there is here. But no, you're right. But yeah, no, there's still tons of religion. Oh my God, yeah, we are a long way. I mean, if they're talking about just America, they're still a little off. But I think it was part of maybe it was that character thinking that, and Wednesday kind of going, yeah, just a minute now. I think there's still a lot of people still believe.
Yeah, that is how it played out. I just I do feel like there's this idea, like the way in which they're portraying all these Jesuses isn't like they're talking about how they do it in a tasteful way, but it's not reverent. It's not. It's an irreverent concept. Like they're portraying all of these gods in very irreverent ways. So like that's a lens through which a agnostic or atheist probably sees a lot of these figure, these either mythological or religious figures, right? So I feel like that's the lens we're viewing this world through. And I was just saying, like, I think it's an interesting lens. I don't think it's necessarily accurate lens.
Definitely.
Really
well, I think, Neil Gaiman really loves to just throw things out there. And I mean, we know how Neil Gaiman believes. It's no secret. I mean, you could just tell by reading it that this is written by, at the very least, an agnostic. But I mean, that's cool. That's fine. Shit, I believe in aliens. I mean, is that, which they actually touch on in the book, which is funny. And I think they talked about it in the series. They talk about the Starmen. It's like they stopped believing in gods and they started believing in the Starmen, and they're coming soon, which is like, God, that'd be great in the next book. Freaking aliens versus gods. I know that's the comic nerd in me.
That's if Warner Brothers got a hold of this franchise.
Yeah, right. Oh my God. But no, that's an interesting. That's a podcast all by itself. Yeah. I think that's rad. But that's a cool thing about this show. It brings these conversations up, but not in a way like you're bringing up religion at Thanksgiving dinner.
Speaking of that, we are going to do one more podcast next week to tie a bow on this whole season. That'll be a feedback episode. We're going to go through all the YouTube videos that we've done. We're going to look at all the comments. We're going to go to Facebook, look at the comments there, and we're going to see different comments that different people have made. We'll quote you guys who are leaving these comments, and we'll discuss them a little bit. We'll answer them if they're questions, if they're insights, we'll discuss those insights. So make sure to leave comments on this video or on any of the past videos. I'll be curating all that stuff this week. And yeah, we're going to have a whole podcast where we'll be addressing all the listener, viewer questions and insights and stuff. So stay tuned for that stuff next week.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about Easter.
Yeah.
John, I know you were looking forward to Easter and her little bunnies who Wednesday ran over. What a dick.
Well, I love how last week you were like, yeah, you don't swerve when you come across bunnies. You just run them over. And Wednesday's like, yep, that's how we deal with them.
There we go.
They poop jelly beans.
I
want one of those bunnies. Look, I was looking forward to it. So I had hyped up Kristen Chenoweth as Easter, and it more than satisfied what I was looking for. She owned this episode for me.
Oh my God, she did. Real quick, would you eat one of those jelly beans?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
What if it tasted like poop? What if it was just like a green poop?
Well, they don't look like
green
poop,
Skittle looking poop. Well,
if it smelled like poop, I wouldn't eat it. But if it looked good and it's
coated turd,
I'd probably eat it.
Literally a candy coated turd. Okay, Kristen Chenoweth, she was brilliant. And real quick, Shadow and Wednesday again kind of took a back seat this episode, which we'll talk about in a second. And it really, this was about this, should have been called "Get Me a Queen," but
yes, Queen.
She was so freaking good, and it made the episode work so well. Like this is what we were leading up to, and everybody converged on it. And she was great, dude. Yeah, no, she was, and her arc was so interesting. Like she really didn't seem like she was ever leaning toward the new gods, but you see that you find out through the episode that she did make a deal with them. She's cool with everybody. Easter is of the old world, but
can play in the new world, and that is very accurate to, I think, how that holiday has evolved through the ages. I like the way that the show kind of expanded on like the pagan holiday versus the Christian holiday and the Christian appropriation of Easter and of Christmas, and I thought that was really interesting stuff. But we also got that fun dynamic of the character interacting with both sides, personified, and she was fantastic. And it looks like she's going to be in the next season a whole lot more from how it all ended up, and her embracing being the goddess of spring. So I couldn't have asked for more from the character and the actress portraying the character, and the hope that we get more of it as soon as next season rolls around.
Yeah, I really wish there was a couple more episodes. It wouldn't have hurt. Come on, stars, don't be cheap. I don't know what their next episode run is going to be. I didn't read it. I know they got renewed for season 2. But this, it's amazing. This whole first season was just traveling around and gathering people and getting to know people, and it wasn't a ton of action, and it was still like just amazing. And that's a testament to great writing. I doubt everybody will agree. My coworkers, who are the most normal people in the world, love this show, but they didn't like last week's, which I loved.
A lot of people didn't like last week's. Last week's was one of my favorite episodes, like I said, of TV. Like, I loved it.
Yeah.
And I did not like the early episodes of this season, as are well documented in these podcasts, which are some of the things that people really latched onto. So I guess, my tastes differ, but I think that everyone's going to like this episode. I don't see a lot of people having problems with this finale.
Oh, they introduced a lot of characters and then we didn't see them again, but it still felt enough. And I can't wait to see them next season. I think we're going to get a lot more converging. And there's still, God, like I said, there's still so much to tell. We still know like nothing about Shadow. We finally got Mr. Wednesday's name, and that was pretty dramatic. And that would have been enough to end a show on like, I am Odin, and like the whole cloud, and you see the tree in the background. But then we go to Easter, and I love that they played this at a dinner party, and she's like this little butterfly going around a dinner party trying to keep guests away from each other, and and keep everything civil. But when Wednesday finally tempted her, and I wonder how Shadow, they're painting Wednesday as the good guy, but like kind of look what he's done. He's been a major dick so far, like a major dick. We find out this episode that he coordinated Laura's death. He got Shadow put in prison. He killed his friend to set up Easter coming into the fray. I mean, that's the only reason he said it to get other gods, but he wanted her. And I think he wants her to counteract the fact that the new American gods have Billquist. And, another thing they kind of showed that, with both Easter and Billquist, you got to be careful what you're messing with here. You're messing with old gods who used to be very powerful, and they want to be in charge. And Billquist can turn on both of them. That's the thing I got out of this episode. If she gets enough power, she'll lay waste to both sides. And I think Easter can do the same. I think, for one, I'm really glad the character change they made on this, John. In the books, remember, she was a hippie
in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, she was a hippie in San Francisco. I'm glad they made her like this Dolly Parton, basically.
Southern Belle,
yeah. That was a great change. So, her arc in this episode, what she does at the end was so fucking badass, which was essentially they took a season hostage, which was so out of left field.
The season that provides sustenance for the world, right?
Yes.
Like, all new plant growth is halted. She just destroyed spring, or took spring hostage.
And it forces media and technical boys' hands to like, now they have to promote her to get her worship so everybody can live. And the thing is though, like media, I was just thinking at the end of this episode, wouldn't media get fed off this because everybody would be watching the news and that would just feed her?
Or the internet,
Um,
yeah.
or the internet. Yeah. And another question, just completely off topic here. Wouldn't it be interesting if they kind of went, they have these all encompassing that, I don't want to get too many characters, but they have technical boy who is just technical stuff and media who is, I'm assuming, TV. But what if they did like the god of social media, break it off a little bit, and they did talk about in the book how the new gods like just pop up and then they go away. I don't know. I think that'd be cool. The whole thing with with Easter and Gillian Anderson, with media, their little talk was bad. That was great. That was awesome. Who was? I didn't catch who media was this time. She's supposed to be a pop culture icon
either. I was thinking maybe like an not Audrey, a Katharine Hepburn type. Maybe Gone with the Wind. I don't know.
I was thinking Gone with the Wind too. That the Scarlett O'Hara. I could be wrong. Somebody will probably correct me on that one. But I'll have to look it up. We didn't have time to do a ton of research before because we just watched the episode.
Yeah, that's the other thing is I'm worried. I really want to toss you a question, but I'm worried that there will be a spoiler. So don't spoil anything. But I am curious as to like who Mr. World is, like what he does. Like I can't figure out. Like media and technology are very evident, right? Self-evident as to what created them, what they control, like all of that stuff. With Mr. World, it's like, is it just that the world is more connected? So like is he like the god of globalism? So I can't figure out like.
Well, gotta be careful with this one. I would say he's the god of bureaucracy and government. Like a CIA director. That's the best way I could say it. I mean, it's with I can't.
So like NSA. Okay, so like he monitors the
world. Because in the book he's got Mr. Town and they act like agent. They act like government agents and stuff.
Cool. Okay.
So I mean that's just an assumption. There might I haven't. So I've read the book, but I've not read anything on the side. I've never heard any Neil Gaiman interviews, so he might have fleshed that out somewhere, which I'll look into. But going further would, I don't even want to say that. I can't go any further. We'll just leave it there.
Cool.
And
with Mr. World, let's just say that I like that he's more ambiguous and that there's mystery there still. I didn't feel like it was hard because, like I said, the only thing I remembered from the book was the spoiler about who Mr. Wednesday was. But I don't think the show really it was weird. The reveal was cool the way they did it. I guess it's hard to know if it seemed like the show was telegraphing it from the very beginning anyway, but maybe it's just because I knew it. So apologies for past podcasts where I referred to him in that way. I just thought it was. I didn't,
No, it's really obvious, especially when they offered the Odin satellite. I mean, if they were saying his name. So Shadow is not quick on the uptake on this, or maybe we're supposed to believe that this is the everyman who's just a random guy who got caught up in this, and he's just having a hard time believing. Maybe he thinks he's dead right now. That's the only thing I have a little hard time grasping. But Shadow has a part to play in this too. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But I guess we could safely say that Shadow isn't just a random guy that they just.
Yeah. And Matt Sweeney alluded to that, right? Like in this episode, he said, he's, who's Shadow? Is he a god? No, he's not anything important except for that he's, we need him, like that's all that he could really say. So, excuse me. So, yeah, look, I liked that we haven't had a ton of Shadow. Not that I don't like Shadow or the actor playing Shadow, because I do, but I think that my favorite television is like ensemble TV, and I think that we're getting like the right amount of him. I think that one of the weaknesses of the book is just that his perspective is the perspective, and so I'm enjoying that we're getting kind of an ensemble vision of this world right now, and some of the episodes early on. I think I personally didn't like so much because they were so restricted to Shadow. So I'm enjoying it. I think one of the things we do have to touch on, we haven't talked much about Laura, which
Yeah, that's next.
she had a big part of this. So yeah, let's. What did you think of her arc this episode, Gary?
Well, we got all these revelations. Yeah, sorry, no pun intended. When she Mad Sweeney brings her to Easter to resurrect her, and we get some very bad news. So, for one, Easter's not very happy that a dead woman is in her house, and she looks into her eyes, and she sees her moment of death, and she realizes she can't resurrect her. She was willing to do it too.
She's the wrong kind of dead.
She's the wrong kind of dead. She was killed by a god. So not even Easter can resurrect that. She wouldn't presume to do it. Maybe she could do it, but I think she was alluding that it'd be very rude. Or so you're just like against the rules. And Mad Sweeney, I think, was more hoping against hope, but you saw the look on his face like, oh, fuck. And that's when we get the scene of Laura grabbing Mad Sweeney by his balls, and little Emily Browning is holding, this huge guy up on the wall with her balls and trying to get which god was it. And that's when we find out Mad Sweeney is a god. She's all, it's not you. You're not a god. And, Laura knows who it was. It was Mr. Wednesday, and Mr. Wednesday had her killed. And then Laura finds out that Mr. Wednesday fucked with her bank job, and Mr. Wednesday, and it was all to get Shadow in jail and to get her out of his life and to put him as low as he could go so he would be open to new things. Just like we were just talking about, that there's a lot of agnostic people and atheist people in America. Well, it's the product of a comfortable society. But if you get people low, there's been times I prayed to God, and that's basically what they wanted to get Shadow, who was a non-believer. They had to get him to a point where he believed. Also, they just wanted to fuck with them. And I love how Mad Sweeney, what do you think gods do? They fuck with you.
Yeah,
they do. So Laura was a little upset to find that out. And that the episode ends, after we get the big reveal of Wednesday with Odin, and Easter, takes Spring hostage,
and Mr. World basically saying like, okay, you want a war, you got a war.
You got it.
Kind of the ending of that, God, new God versus old God arc for the season.
Yeah. Well, the last lines are Laura's like, I think you and I need to have a chat, and I'm
with my husband.
I hope that's where they start. I want them to start immediately with that chat. Laura and Mr. Wednesday. That would be freaking rad. It also some of and that's it wasn't a huge part. We got so much happened in this episode. I can't wait to watch it again. I need to watch it a couple more times. Mm-hmm. And again, there wasn't any action to speak of. We had, media showing up as Scarlett O'Hara, whoever she was, and she had a faceless dancing man behind her and a top hat that could multiply. And then Technical Boy showed up, and we had Mr. World briefly. We have Mr. Nancy in this one, it ends with Billquist on the bus doing basically the same thing. When she's leaving Tehran, they talked about her adapting, and she's in a plane, and she asks a guy to go to the bathroom and join the Mile High Club. And the one thing I did get out of this episode is do not go to the bathroom with Billquist. And what is the name of going and having sex in the bathroom on a Greyhound bus? What's the name of that club? Is it the Mile Long Club? It's a little kinky. Greyhound bus. So and that's where it ends, and it's them going to the Rock House, which I thought we would actually go to, but I noticed that I was kind of expecting a little bit of a longer episode, to be honest with you. I was expecting like an hour and 10 minutes, and this one was like 42 minutes long. So I don't know, but still,
we didn't get a lot of. You're right. There wasn't a lot of like action, right? Like there weren't like bombs going off. But what I feel like this episode did really effectively was that every moment of it had something magical happening, right? Like this show, I think, works at its best when you have like multiplying faceless men and jelly bean pooping bunnies, and tons of Jesuses walking around with like glowy halos over them, and like a god taking spring hostage and seeing all the color drained out of plants, and stock footage of flowers going back into the ground. And I just feel like it was just very pretty, and
Oh, it was
it
gorgeous.
had magical elements in every scene. No scene was ordinary.
No.
It got away from the Zernabog scene where they're like having dinner in Chicago in this like dingy apartment for 2 episodes, right? Like they got away from that sterile, gray, mundane feeling, and now they've gotten into some like colorful, magical stuff. And I think this is where the show excels, in my opinion, like for me.
Well, and that was done obviously on purpose. They wanted to show that the gods are, like Billquist, they were down and out. These are depowered gods, and we got a glimpse of what they can do. And we almost went past the fact that Shadow had a talk with Jesus. It was just a quick talk, and it was just basically Jesus going, listen, you've got to go down your road and you got to follow it to the end, and it's probably not going to be good. But he's sitting Indian style floating on some water, which was great. And that guy, the guy, he's from Saving Private Ryan. I forgot the actor's name, but I love the little glowy thing behind his head. It was just freaking awesome, dude. But it also showed later on in the episode I was referring to before, the depower gods, and we got a taste of what they used to be able to do. Media, arguably, maybe aside from Mr. World, which we don't exactly know what he is, but media arguably is probably the most powerful god.
See, I would say today I would go with technology.
But they both were
go hand in
kids. You could tell there were kids at the adults table, and they got scared when Odin had to kill, and I guess those little faceless guys, whatever they are, they're actually living things, and Odin sacrifices them to Easter to give her the power so she could take Spring hostage. Zeus has to do stuff like that, where media could have done whatever she does and wiped him out right there. But that showed a vulnerability, which is kind of cool, because if you're looking at it in terms of good guys and bad guys, which I guess, I don't know why you'd watch the show looking in those terms, there are none. We're really interested in Mr. Wednesday. I'm interested in Wednesday, but he could be the bad guy. He's kind of looking like, well, he is the bad guy. I mean, he is.
But you're rooting for Easter to join his side.
Yeah,
right?
You're rooting for the old gods. You just don't want them. You're rooting against the corporate gods of America.
But what's funny is that we probably in our daily life would prefer that the new gods stay alive. Like I want my video games and podcasts, and so
hell yeah.
It's like we should be rooting for the new gods for sure, but we're not.
We're definitely making an offer to Technical Boy tonight and through all these podcasts. So yeah, it's an interesting show. It stirs a lot of shit up, which art should do. But I mean, it's still just a TV show.
Yeah,
so,
and it's just fun.
It's
like I'm enjoying it. I thought this episode was a great finale. If you want to see all the other shows we cover, head over to www.nerdrotic.com. Right now, we don't have a ton going on, but we've got Doctor Who still going on. You guys are doing iZombie, and we have our news show every week. So we're also, like we said, coming back for another episode next week for the feedback show for American Gods. You can also please like us on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdroticpodcast. All of our updates, news, insights go over there. Please subscribe to us on iTunes for the audio version of this podcast. Leave us a star review or a rating. It helps us a lot in the iTunes podcast rankings. If you're not already watching us there, please head over to YouTube and subscribe to the Nerdrotic podcast or the Nerdrotic channel at YouTube. Leave your comments on each of our videos. We do look at them. We try to reply if there's any direct questions or anything like that, or anything done in good faith. So you can follow me on Twitter at Jon Reed 16. That's JONREED 16. You can follow Gary at Nerdrotics. That's our official Nerdrotic Twitter feed. It's Nerdrotic with an S on the end. And please follow us on Instagram. It's Nerdrotic on Instagram. I think that's everything. But look, I've had a really fun time. I haven't enjoyed the entire season of American Gods, but I've enjoyed the second half of it a lot. And I'm really looking forward to where it's going. And I always enjoy talking to you, whether it's bitching about something I don't like or raving about. So I'm having fun with this one. I'm appreciating all of our banter as we go through watching these episodes one at a time.
I'm sad to see this show go. It's been a lot of fun. You know what? We only decided to recap this we decided a week before the show, and it was, you know, we got a lot of views on YouTube, got a lot of downloads on the audio side, and it's been, you know, for our small growing little mom and pop thing, it's been great. And I thank everybody for watching and everybody for commenting. Yeah, thank you guys so much. I just want to announce we will, you know, some shows we're going to be doing in the future. Yes, we're still doing Doctor Who. I was asked by a couple of commenters on this on the American Gods thread. We will be doing Preacher starting in 2 weeks, and of course we're going to be doing Game of Thrones. That's coming up soon. And we will be doing a lot of Comic-Con stuff. Dennis, our other host, and Chris, our other host, and myself will be going to Comic-Con in a month. So we'll be doing live shows from Comic-Con every night after the show. So
I'll
please
be coordinating
look for
from the command center.
You will be. As far as our winners for our $20 Amazon gift cards, I don't have names in front of me right now. I'm going to be contacting you on the comment threads tomorrow morning. Or actually later this morning. We're recording this early Sunday morning, and it is the 18th of June. And we'll mention your names in the next podcast when we do our Q&A, but you will be notified before then, and I will send them out Monday. So I've already got the cards, and we're going to send them snail mail to you.
If you guys are taking the summer off of TV for some reason, you're not watching Game of Thrones or Preacher or whatever, we're going to have a ton of shows when the fall TV season starts back up. It looks like we'll have, for every one superhero show we cover right now, there'll be 4 next season, with all of the Runaways and Freeform and CW and you know, Inhumans and all that stuff. So there's going to be a lot of superhero TV shows that we're going to be covering for you starting in the fall. So stay with us at Nerdrotic, and we'll be recapping all of your favorite geek and nerd and superhero stuff on TV.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So hey everybody, thanks again for watching, and may the small folks sing songs of your greatness.
Awesome. Bye everybody.
See ya next week.